And just to let everybody, I need to make the motion for the agenda because I need to change 3 items to action items that aren't.
Oh, God.
11, 12, and 13 need to be action items, and so it's just a minor thing, but we'll have to amend it.
And are you going to add your other piece
What other piece?
about the ins-2 piece?
That's not. These are actionable. That's just at any point we can make action items.
Let's call this meeting to order, please. First, we'll start with roll call. Director Peterson, if you'll start us this evening.
Director Peterson?
Director McAnalloy.
Director Wilson.
Director Eto.
And now we'll have the presentation of colors by the Federal Way High School JROTC. If you'll please rise.
Forward, march. Detail. Hold. Flag. Face. Carry. Colors.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carry. Colors. Right. Face. Forward. March. Detail. Hold. Order. Colors.
Please be seated. So our first item this evening will be the approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the agenda for March 24th, 2015, with the addition of changing items 11, 12, and 13 of our agenda to actionable items.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion?
Just removing those, it was just a typo. The actionable items are just ones that we've received report on and that we'll be voting on either to approve or send back to the superintendent tonight.
I also wanted to make sure I don't see that any kind of a report out on the GLE advisory, and I'm ready to do that if we want to do that, or if we want to wait till the next meeting, I'm happy to do that as well. I don't think we quite landed on that one, so I'm open for either one from the rest of the board.
I'd love to hear about it. So do we want to add one right after the legislative report?
Thanks.
Okay. And what do we want to title it?
I just would like to report out on our first meeting.
Okay. So I move that we add item 11 being the committee report for ends 1 and move all subsequent items down 1.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is to add item number 11 to the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll move to the first motion with the adjustment of now adding 11. That will now be 12, 13, 14, and 15, and making approvals on 12, 13, and 14. Any discussion around that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next will be the approval of our consent agenda.
I move the approval of the consent agenda for March 24th, 2015 as submitted.
A motion, do I hear a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And next we will have student recognition. Director McLean? Excuse me, Superintendent. Sorry about that.
Thank you. We have several recognitions this evening, and in the absence of Deputy Superintendent Mark Davidson, we have asked Joni Hall, Todd Beamer High School principal, to manage the student recognitions for 2 different kinds of events at Todd Beamer.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm President McAnally and Board Directors, Ms. McLean. Tonight we have 2 different awards, like you said, Ms. McLean. First, we're going to recognize our Act 6 scholarship winners. And we've got 3 of them here and 1's on her way, so hopefully she'll walk in really quickly. The Act 6 scholarship is a very prestigious scholarship that is awarded to students throughout the state of Washington. And the largest scholarship that they give is a full ride scholarship to one of, I think it's 8 private colleges. This year, over 900 students in the state applied for the scholarship. It's based on community service, leadership skills, grade point average, among other things. Out of those 900 students, 37 received scholarships, and 4 of them are from Todd Beamer High School. So I would like to introduce to you Ali Rabadi. And Ali's received a full ride scholarship for 4 years to PLU, where she's going to study
Sociology and Hispanic Studies.
and our yay, Ali. Next is Jazzkran Sandhu. Did I say it right? Yeah. Okay. Jazzkran received a little over $20,000, about 21, 22. And he's also going to go to PLU. And what are you going to study?
Computer science.
Criminal science?
Computer science.
Oh, computer science. Computer science. He will be coming and fixing my computer soon. Yay, Jazzkran. Next to Jazzkran is Eloisa Serrano, and Eloisa is going to attend Gonzaga University, where she will be studying
Electrical engineering.
and she's gonna fix all my electrics in my house. And coming soon, I hope she gets here quickly, is Laura Titano. She's going to be joining Ali and Jazzkran at PLU, and she received about a $22,000 scholarship. One of the things I want to say about these students, I've watched all of them at Todd Beamer High School for a long time, for the last 4 years, really. And I am so impressed with the leaders that they have become over the last 4 years, the effort and the time that they put into their studies, as well as a million other things. These kids are on everything at our school. They lead everything. When I ask them to do something, I don't have to worry about it. I get to step back and just watch them shine. So in a few years, I am going to be okay with who's leading us and who's driving our country. So congratulations. You can say that.
One thing about this scholarship, I don't know, about the scholarship is that it builds, not only do they provide us financially, but they'll also provide us with leadership skills and leadership skills that provide us to be in college. And one of the big things that their goal is for the scholarship is to bring us back to the community and make a difference. That is the ultimate goal of the scholarship, to bring us back and make a difference in our community. So we hope that with our degrees, we will come back and make an impact as you guys have in ours. In addition to the wonderful training that we will be given, Act 6 is also a scholarship that promotes equity and equality with all, and it lets students such as myself, a minority and also an undocumented student here in Federal Way, pursue post-secondary education and really achieve my dream of being out there and letting everyone else know that other undocumented students anywhere can do the same.
So in addition to what Eloisa and Alexandra said, Act 6 is a system that it's a support system that makes a family for us. And we work as a family for all 4 years, and we support each other every time. And we will come back and stay as a family as a whole life.
The Act 6 group had a ceremony for the kids a couple weeks ago in Tacoma, and you could tell how much support these kids are going to get at school in being successful, and how much of a family community that they create, because all of the people come back every year. The place is packed, and the things that people say are just fantastic. So it's wonderful. And yay, here's Laura! This is Laura Titano. Come on up, Laura. And none of them knew that they were going to have to speak tonight. So Laura is going to be going to PLU. She's going to go with Ali and Jackson. Do you want to say anything about the scholarship? Put you on the spot, like one sentence.
I just ran up the stairs, sorry. Something about it?
Yeah.
Going into it, I didn't know that it was more about just a scholarship. When I heard the word scholarship, I heard the word money and funds,
it's much more than that. The idea of it being like a foundation and program is so little. It's not even the right words to describe it. Tired, sorry. And it's amazing, and not a lot of people know about it, and well, they don't know the value of it. And if I could express the value of it, and I really would, and I know that's really gonna shape me for the next couple of years, and it's gonna help me leave the impact that I wanna leave.
Yep. So I would like to thank Darren Adams, who is the Blue Academy principal, and Mr. Ambalesa, who's on his way. He's the Silver Academy principal. These are their kids. They come from their academy. And without the people that work at Todd Beamer, it would be hard to do such a great job with our kids. So I thank them for their support and everything that they give every day to kids. And I want to tell you guys how proud I am of you. And while they get sat down, I'd also like to thank Fonda Mongrain, and she's in the back sitting down in a green jacket. She's our college and career specialist at Todd Beamer High School. And I know these kids know it, but they owe her a lot. Fonda helps all of our kids at our school, but she helps kids so much. She finds them scholarships. She helps them write their applications. She bends over backwards. She does more than anybody I would ever know, and our kids are so lucky to have her in our school, and so are we, and so am I. So, yay, Fonda. Okay, switch gears all the way. So a few weeks ago, I sat for a few days in the Tacoma Dome watching some fantastic athletes, and one of them and her coach can come on up. So for 2 of the days, it was WrestleMania on the floor of the Tacoma Dome. Every mat in the state was there. Every wrestler in the world was there. I think it's one of the biggest wrestling competitions any place, with more people that participate. And so, at the end of the day, on the second day, late into the evening, we had a final winner in the girls' competition, 170 pounds, I think, 170 pounds. And it was a tough one because it was Beamer versus Beamer. And so, in a good way, it was a win-win situation. And for Deja, it was a real win because her hard work over the last 2 years and her effort and just her fantastic enthusiasm. I've watched her grow. Last year, she faced a really big injury, and she was out for the whole season with a torn ACL, one of those ACLs. She came back, she trained, she came out, she begged her coach to come and be the coach. He said yes, and they just put in a massively awesome season, and at the end of the day, Deja was the winner, and she won state. So our state wrestling champion from Todd Beamer High School, our first individual state champion, Deja Van. Oh, and to boot, and this is just a given, but she's also the academic state champion. So we don't just make good athletes, we make good student athletes, and that really is what counts. And I'd like to recognize Mr. Cardwell. Jay Cardwell was our girls wrestling coach this year, did a fantastic job in building our program into, I think, 18 girls, about 18 girls that competed over the season, one of the biggest teams in the state. They did, wow, awesome. We went into this with, let's just go have fun, do well, get better, and we ended up coming in second place by a half of a point. So second place state champs for the team, and Mr. Cardwell and Whitney Buck, our assistant coach, did a fantastic job. Too late to talk song.
I'm ready to go? Good, fantastic. We'll move along. I'm John Marr. I'm the athletic director at Federal Way High School, and I'm here to introduce some very important Eagles to you, some great student athletes and their coaches. But before I do that, I do want to pass along that this is becoming, in the last couple of years, more than just happenstance. This is going to be the 5th state title in the last 2 years for our team titles. And tonight we'll give you the 15th individual award winner as a state champion for our school in just under 2 years. So as we continue to look at building the school of the future, we need to make sure that we have lots of trophy cases, because if we keep at this pace, we're going to fill the whole school up with trophies and state championships. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce to you the first member tonight, and her coach. Tia Thomas was our floor routine gymnast state champion. She's a good family friend of mine, so I've known her since she was this tall, so it was really exciting for me personally to watch her win the state title. Unfortunately, she can't be here tonight, but her coach is going to talk about her, and you're going to get to see her on video. So without further ado, Carrie Martin, our gymnastics coach, is going to talk about Tia.
Thank you, John. Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's an honor to talk about Tia tonight. Her aunt is here to represent her, Shay Short. A lot of you guys know who she is, so it's great to have her here. Tia's an awesome senior. Not only is she a great athlete, she's also a great student. She's a 4.0 student throughout her high school career. She got a scholarship to the University of Oregon. She told me to say, "Go Ducks," on a scholarship for acro tumbling, which uses her gymnastic skills, her cheerleading skills, and that's where she's at tonight, working on those great skills. And because she couldn't be here tonight, we thought we'd bring the DVD from her state meet so you can see the routine that won her the first place championship. She scored a 9.7 out of a perfect score of a 10. So she was nearly perfect. And the judges all commented on how great of an athlete she is. She's been at the state meet for the last 3 years. She's made the podium in 3 sports, in diving, gymnastics, as well as track. So she's a great athlete and very humble. Just appreciate you all giving us the opportunity to welcome her and thank her for all her great accomplishments. On behalf of me and my sister, as her coaches for Federal Way, she'll be missed. She's a great leader, great teammate, and a great athlete, and great student. She'll be hard to replace. So without further ado, we'll let you watch her floor routine. Let's see, where's this thing? Mouse. You gotta have the music, because that's part of it. All right, and go. She finishes like a champion. So again, just thank you very much for giving us the time. And like Coach Marr said, it has been over 11 years since the Federal Way Gymnastics team has had a state individual champion. So it's such an honor, it's rewarding. And we look forward to having some more in the future. But just thank everybody. And now we got some other great accomplishments to come from because Federal Way rocks. minimize.
Okay, guys, come on up. While the Federal High School state champion boys basketball team is making their way up, and before I pass things over to Coach Collins, I do want to just talk a little bit beyond what the team accomplished on the court. I think we all know what a great season they had. Obviously, it ended in a state championship. But I can tell you, other than maybe there's some parents and some coaches, I saw this team play all year long. And these boys represented their school and their community at such a high level with their sportsmanship, with their style of play, with their constant just movement when they were on the floor. And the way that they played all year long was a real pleasure to watch for me, and I know everybody else that was a part of it. And I know that every time I walked away from a boys basketball game, I was proud to be an Eagle. And so they just had a fantastic season. And I'm going to let Coach Collins talk quickly about the season and about his assistant coaches. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand what great kids these kids are that are standing here. And so without further ado, Coach Jerome Collins, come on up and give him an introduction.
Superintendent McLean and President and Board, thanks for having us here tonight to honor these young men. It's a privilege to do so. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge my assistant coaches. We have Coach Reed. Step forward, please, Coach Reed. Coach Gillis, you step forward. I'm proud of these young men. They played for me as players, and now they're back at the school as math and science teachers and contributing and giving back to the school. So I'm very proud of them. 17 and 15 years respectively, I think they've been with me at the school as coaches. And then we have Coach Doug Sloan. Coach Doug Sloan and his wife Sue have spent relentless times, and they do not make the $3.4 million that we make a year. That's just a joke. They give their time and efforts, and Coach Sloan have been with me. His son played for me 30 years ago. Coach Sloan have been with me 29 of those years. So I commend and thank all of our coaching staff for their relentless time and effort. Thank you very much. To these young men, we have a motto. We believe that you don't achieve greatness without sacrifice. These young men understand sacrifice. First of all, I want to say that they are a cumulative GPA of 3.3. We're very proud of that. They understand what it is to be truly student/athlete. They understand sacrifice. When we talk about sacrifice, we talk about 6 days out of 7 in the gym. All spring, all summer, they understand sacrifice. I think when football season was going on and they were running a track, they understand sacrifice. On top of that, when we talk about sacrifice, their parents, they sacrifice immensely. We took them to Mesa, Arizona over Christmas break. The parents sacrificed their time and family time when they allowed us to leave on Christmas Day. That shows you the type of sacrifice that the parents made, and I appreciate them for that. I want to commend them for that. They understand sacrifice, giving themselves relentlessly in time over and over again. When Malik, who signed with Seattle University, went down, our leading scorer and our leading floor general went down, these young men who were relatively young did not change their goals. And their goals was to win an SPSL championship, they did, a West Central District championship, they did, and finally a state championship. So they all understand sacrifice and I'm very proud of them for that. The last thing I want to say to you is we have a saying that we use every night before we go out on the floor, and that is to play hard, rebound, defend, share the ball, we win. And they did just that. I think in the state tournament and so forth, they understood and said what it is to be a winner. We're proud of them for it. Now they've won on the court, we want them to continue to win in life and carry on the legacy of Federal Way High School boys basketball. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So do you want to pass out? Okay. Yeah, I think so. So, Coach Collins, while your team is standing up here, I want to take a moment to recognize you. And this letter came from Milton Snyder, who was the superintendent of Federal Way Public Schools from 1979 to 1987, who had the foresight to hire you. And he wrote a letter to give us the opportunity, hello again, to commend you. So I'd like to take this opportunity to commend Jerome Collins, coach, and the Federal Way High School boys basketball team on their accomplishment in winning the 4A 2015 high school basketball championship. In the 1980s, I appointed Jerome Collins as the coach of Federal Way High School boys basketball team to replace Gary Brines, one of the Washington State's superior coaches and teachers. At the time in 1984 and now in 2015, I consider the appointment of Jerome Collins to the coaching position at Federal Way High School to have been one of my most important coaching decisions. Jerome is the kind of person and coach I would recommend as Coach of the Year. Not only did he win the 2015 4A championship, but he is the superior leader of young students in providing a comprehensive public school education. Each student he has taught and promoted has leadership skills that will give them a lifetime advantage. Well done, Jerome Collins. I'm truly proud of you for the leadership contributions you've provided students during the past 31 years. Again, Milton Snyder, PhD. So thank you to you.
So now's our time for public comment, but we actually have no slips filled out at this time. So we will move on to superintendent's comments from Superintendent McLean.
Thank you. The last 2 weeks have been typical of March. While we know March Madness often refers to college basketball, it's a phrase that we use oftentimes to talk about the level of activity that tends to occur in a school district during March. And just to touch on a few things that occurred over the last couple of weeks, and I know a number of you were present at some of these and so may speak more deeply about the individual activities. I just want to recognize David Stone and our writers, our young writers in middle school and high school who participated in the Avid Writing Contest. They had 45 minutes to prepare a written statement discussing the ethics around Ebola and whether or not people who show symptoms of Ebola or have been exposed to Ebola should be quarantined. And so it was a very engaging evening to see all of these students from across our middle schools and high schools come together with their families and be recognized for taking on that writing challenge, and hearing the two speeches from the winners who didn't know who they would be and were kind of on the spot to have to read their speeches. We had 101 Japanese students arrive on March 15th as part of a 2-week visitation program here to Federal Way. I give a great shout out to our high school families who are accommodating these host students while they're here. They're visiting our schools, including our elementary, middle, and high schools, along with engaging in some with our fire department and our police department. So that is very exciting. We are working on a number of district initiatives. We're preparing a second round survey document for parents, students, and teachers to check in with families again about the current grading practices and the proposed changes in grading practices. And that's a draft document that the district's grading advisory committee is assisting us with. And so we look forward to getting that finalized and out the door so we can get a sense of where we're at a year later, and a little more than a year later, and how people are feeling about the changes that we're proposing. We are gearing up for summer school. I know I've mentioned this before, but I think it's always worth mentioning. The summer school program we offer, or the slate of summer school programs that we offer in the school district, serve more students than the majority of the school districts serve in this state every single day. So typically we serve over 3,000 students in a variety of different summer programs, and that is a huge effort to gear up for every year. A component of our summer school program, of course, is our Fred buses, Fun, Read, Eat, and Dream. And I just wanted to give a shout out to that activity last year. Last summer we served over 40,000 meals with those 3 Fred buses over the length of that time. From a legislative standpoint, and I'm sure you'll hear about this from one of our board members, the District 30th representatives and senator held a town hall meeting, which was well attended by our general public, and they had lots of questions to ask our representatives and senators about what was happening in Olympia this year. We also had an opportunity to weigh in with Sound Transit on the proposals for the extension of the light rail system. There are, of course, a number of options that are currently under consideration. I just want to remind this board table and our community that each one of the options that are under consideration have some impact on school district property, which is just something for us to keep in mind as we roll forward. Over the weekends, as we talk about the great things our students are doing, the Thomas Jefferson math team competed at the Mu Alpha Theta competition and were first in the state on Saturday, March 21st. So I am sure we will get an opportunity to recognize that math team here at the board table. Thomas Jefferson was led by a student whose name I am sure I will mispronounce, so forgive me in advance, Orgil Batsaya, who is a 4-time state champion, and Daniel Kim, who placed first in 3 different events. So it'll be great to recognize those math whizzes too. We also, over the last 2 weeks, had an opportunity to get our first peek at our work that we've been doing with the Learner First team. We have 11 of our schools that are working on some very specific learning targets, and that work is being funded through Race to the Top. And remember, this is a mix of quantitative and qualitative data, but in order to measure progress or in order to consider a student to be on track or geared for success, they have to be reading at grade level or conducting their math at grade level. And I'm pleased to report that with the preliminary data that we saw, which was pretty rough at that point in time, we had data from 4 of our 11 schools regarding our math target. And so there were 94 boys of color in the fall. Of those 94 boys, 36.2% of them were well on track or geared towards success. And in our winter measurement, more than half of them were now being ranked as well on track and geared for success. And we saw similar gains in our K-1-2 English language learners with 265 students there, moving from 24.9% to 42.3% of our students being well on track or geared for success. So again, this is our the second year for 6 of our schools working with the Learner First strategies, which we refer to as change teams, because this is not an instructional strategy per se. It's a conversation about how to change instruction in the classroom. And we obviously have 5 schools that are new to that process. So I'm pleased to see those preliminary results over the mid-year and look forward to the continuing conversation and data. There are many things for you to be thinking about putting on your calendar, whether at the board table or in the audience. On Monday, March 30th at 10 a.m., King County Executive Dow Constantine will host his State of King County here at the Federal Way Community Center. I know his first choice was to host that at a school, but difficult to accommodate that kind of request during a school day while we're also testing. April 1st is the annual State of the City address that is hosted by the Greater Federal Way Chamber of Commerce at the Twin Lakes Country Club. Thursday, April 2nd, the district is hosting an early learning open house at the Head Start building on the Truman campus. Just a reminder, in case anyone's forgotten, spring break is April 6th through the 10th, and the following week, student-led conferences are scheduled for April 16th and 17th. Wednesday, April 15th is our quarterly key communicator meeting. And as a reminder, our work study in April is on the 21st because of the timing of spring break. So we will be having our April work study on the 3rd Tuesday rather than the 1st Tuesday. And We Day is on April 23rd, and board recognition nights are around the corner. So just when you think you're going to get a moment in your calendar because you're going to get done with one major project that you're working on, you'll get to go out into the community and enjoy those board recognition nights. I also, if you will indulge me, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Executive Director Ron Mayberry for a moment. Today was our first live testing day with the Smarter Balance assessment, and just thought it would be appropriate to have a quick update about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to give a quick update. We had 5 elementary schools kick this off. Keep in mind, over the last 5 weeks, we've had many schools kind of test the water and do interim testing, which is a form of practice, but it actually mimics the actual test. They log into the secure browser, do all those things. So we've been baselining this for 5 weeks, and these 5 schools got a great start. Great compliment to Dave Davis and his team, and hardware team from ITS, along with the network team, and keeping those things humming along. So if today was any indicator, it's going to be a good go. And I think next week we have another 5 elementary starting off. These are all 3rd grade testing, because that was our, this is the testing that needs to get done first, and those are the first groups.
Thank you, Ron. And that concludes my comments this evening.
Great, thank you. And now scoreboard comments. Director Eto, if you'll start us this evening, please.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about the National School Board Directors Association's meeting that we went to in Nashville. It was a great conference, a lot of great workshops and discussions, and sometimes you never know what you're going to learn. I walked into one that had to do with parent engagement, and then they talked about how the police were providing the seized property to the schools. And you can get a lot of computers and things like that, and you could give them to apartment complexes, put them in the offices, and so the emergency notices and things that go out, people can go to the office and use that computer, and it costs the school nothing. Or answering machines where robocalls go out and there's not an answering machine, and so you give away answering machines that have been confiscated. So it was kind of interesting what things you can pick up in a conference like this. I also attended one that had to do with haves and have-nots. And the scenarios that the lady provided in talking about how different cultures can create a lot of disconnects for parents and make it unwelcoming or really sad for the student. I mean, if you had a situation where a person that wasn't speaking English very well tried to introduce themselves to an official, and the official turns their back in a way, and the child sees that, I mean, here's the child with their parent there, the person that they respect and love, and to be mistreated like that is a terrible experience. And yet the culture of that particular person might have been that if you're never introduced to somebody, you're not to actually have somebody come up to you and talk to you direct. And so in their mind, they might be acting appropriately, but in the environment that they're in, they're not understanding the culture and the impacts, and that's what's important, is the training that people need so that they're all understanding of their culture and environment because of the damage they can do to children when there's disconnect. So that was one of the better sessions I attended, plus they were offering free books, so that was a good one. There was also a very dynamic speaker that talked about Youth Unlimited and helping minority students of color, male students of color, but it applies across the board. And it had to do with students who are disengaged from their classrooms, and the fact that if the school is constantly pushing test scores, trying to get graduation rates, they're talking metrics of some kind, the student sees that as that's about you. It's not about me. And so it has to be translated in terms of, how much of your time is worth studying so that you can get a job when you graduate and make a lot more money than the schemes that you might be contemplating that have legal consequences. And so this speaker was really great to listen to and understand how, whether it's a parent, a mentor, a coach, whoever, needs to be able to engage students and make them believe in themselves and understand their possibilities because it's so easy to get derailed. So there's really a lot of great things that can be learned from these conferences, along with the advocacy. Of course, this is a school board association, and so they want the school board directors to be armed properly in terms of getting advocacy out to legislatures and be aware of the issues of public education. But aside from that, these are great conferences to learn from, and so I was really glad that I was able to attend.
Director Wilson?
Well, I think I'll start backwards. I just wanted to say today in the mail I got SAT results, and if you have a student who took the SAT test, it was only a week or so ago, so it was a quick turnaround, and I haven't opened them yet because it's not addressed to me, but I can hardly wait to open it and see what's inside. To have someone else open it and show me what's inside. And I'm really impressed because that's really fast turnaround, and it's just, for so long you had to sit and wait forever and ever, and you almost forgot you even took the test. So I also had an opportunity for the first time to attend the AVID dinner and talk with families and to talk with students, and it's just truly a wonderful event, and the entire multipurpose or lunchroom area was filled. And David just did an incredible job of kind of leading the way, and it was for staff, it was for students, it was for all of those folks who are that AVID family. The other thing I want to say is I had a chance to attend the TAF luncheon for the foundation in support of our school, and I know that by that afternoon, they had amassed over $310,000 just from that event. And what I am very proud about is there were students this time that during the luncheon presented. And Tori Brown, who's a 10th grader from Taft Academy, did a Taft Talk. And she, if you know TED Talk, it's a Taft Talk, so it's similar to that, on Bionicon, teaching STEM through innovation and creation. Absolutely amazing. Thinking about what if you could live forever was really how she started. The second one was Mullet, who's also a 10th grader who is going to nationals for speech and debate, and did an interpretation of How to Be Black, which was one of the one of the things that got her to go to nationals. Absolutely phenomenal. And then Larissa Ho's a 12th grader, and she also is in speech and debate and did Skating Towards Gender Equality. All three of those women we can be just incredibly proud of, just like the other folks that were here tonight. I also had a chance to just sit in on the grading advisory because it was going on, and I was really thankful and appreciative for the folks that were there, and it was obvious there's been a lot of work and the work continues, and I look forward to seeing the recommendations that come out. And then also, I guess, I also was in Nashville at NSBA, and there is just an incredible number of workshops to choose from, and so it's very difficult in a short period of time to decide what is the best of the best. But they do a lot with apps and a lot with downloading, so you have a chance to kind of peek into things before you go to actually see, what it say it is exactly kind of what it is, and sometimes it's on the mark and sometimes it's not. But I really focused on a couple of things and then looked in on some other things. So student voice was important to me and always is important to me, as well as family engagement. So, but I always do family engagement. So this time I did student voice. And was just thoroughly impressed, and continue to think about all the wonderful things we do here and how we need to show and share our great things in Federal Way, but also continue to be amazed by the students that come and really show us how important it is to think about the stakeholders that are really at the center of everything we do, and those are the children and the young adults that we serve. Equity in education also was an area that I went to look at. Interestingly enough, though, not necessarily approached through a race equity lens, but through a lens of attendance areas and equity and equality related to operations and to facilities and to supplies and those kinds of things across the board to every student. So although in the end the focus is and the hope is those things will bring some equity, their lens and how they approached it was very different. But out of that was some really good information about visibility and transparency. And when I say that, kind of the good, bad, and ugly, and a lot of, out of Roanoke, Virginia, a lot of good things as a way to show and share to the community what we're doing and kind of all the things we're looking at when we consider whole children, and what we're doing really well in and what we continue to need to work toward, but in one place where one sees a full picture. When we report out on things one at a time, sometimes we focus in on that and forget that there's an incredible landscape, and we need to be aware of all of those, and they're all very complex and they're all moving parts. The other two things I focused in on were things I knew about, but I wanted to go and see from a national level what I needed to know more about. And that was project-based learning and also AVID. And so with project-based learning, had some time to spend with DLR Group, who is the architecture group, who took students there through a process of project-based learning in a 7-hour period of time where they gave them a problem of practice and they had to come up with a solution in 7 hours and then present it the next day to the folks in the workshop. And what was interesting to me was these young folks came from 3 different schools in 3 different states, or 3 different states, and most of them were from schools that were different within that district. So they'd never worked together, and they don't do project-based learning. And in that short period of time, to have that support and that framework, and to see what those young people were able to come up with as far as solutions to real-world problems and issues, shelter, water, and food, without a lot of breadth and depth, and project-based learning just continued to solidify how important that was. And again, with student voice, how real it was to them and how it really deepened their learning. And then for AVID, it's really getting that whole national picture and all of the pieces, so that when I listen and when I visit and when I hear, I have a place to put it all. So it was very nice to hear from the folks from California who run the AVID program and support folks all across the U.S. So again, just like Director Eto said, it's always a good opportunity, and I think this year it was particularly good, and some very, very relevant topics to explore.
Thank you. Director Peterson.
Was able to stop by Illahee and check out, they had a career pathway opportunity that the communities and schools, I forget what we call community schools, they're not liaisons, they're school outreach coordinators. And the school outreach coordinator there, she had put together, invited different people from different backgrounds just to come in, and teachers just allowed their students to be able to go to the assembly there in the lunchroom and hear not only what the career was about, but how to get to that career. And you know, I think a lot of times students can take a look at something like, oh yeah, I'd like to do that, and not realize what type of education you need, what kind of experiences, what kind of volunteer work, what kinds of other things, character, all that type of stuff goes into different careers, opportunities in life. And so very, very well attended, a lot of fun. I know the presenters had a great time, and it was just good just to be there and just see that going on over at Illahee. And you see that. You just see people there that are definitely, you know, someone there that is about, in community schools, is about mentoring. And I'll actually tie that into my first thing. I had a great time at NSBA as well, and it was a great time just to not only see those that are local that we rub shoulders with, you know, right next door. You know, you have Auburn, Kent, Tukwila, and Highline, and all that, but also just nationally. And one of the first speakers was Jane Pauley, and she talked about her own reflection in life. And I thought it was just really interesting about how she just kind of unpacked the whole idea of where our society is at. And here in Federal Way, you know, we have 35%, I believe 35% of homes have school-age children, and then, you know, it really leaves a lot more other people that are either empty nesters and that type of a thing. And she really talked about how we have that group in society right now that is living longer, they're living better, their health is better, and what do you do with your life? How do you invest and make more of your life? And she talked about just saying yes and trying. And it was one of those things, talking to a bunch of school board directors, it was just very, very inspiring. And it got me to think just how many amazing individuals do we have right now in our community that we could look for opportunities to empower them to be mentors in our schools with, you know, communities and schools and other things that have that extra time and maybe kind of stuck in a rut right now. And we can maybe get them into a classroom setting and those kinds of things and just untapped potential. And you know, obviously she's speaking that message from her heart, but I think that's more nationally, people getting to that place in life and understanding that. And I was just really inspired, just as I look, you know, as we always look to the next season of our life, just how do we leave that legacy and how do we just continue to invest more. Why am I spacing on a name? What's his first name? Pogue? Dave Pogue. One of the focuses of the conference this year was technology. And you know, technology has just continues to advance and get bigger and better and larger, and the types and layers and what is the future looking like. And he's someone that does stuff for Scientific American, Yahoo, all that kind of stuff, and really unpacked for all of us just the trends in technology that are happening, from the wrist devices to the Apple Watch to all the apps to all the websites to Web 1.0 to Web 2.0 to all the data that is being collected as we wear on our wrists and our phones and in our classrooms and in our microwave and in our bed springs and in our, I mean, just you name it, in our toilets. Literally, technology overload and what technology is going towards. And in education, how does that play a role? And how do we, and just understanding more of what is the reality, not that we feel that we're in, but what are our students that are going to be in, and the innovation and that types of things. And the opportunities to harness for us as a society the information that's out there to better serve humanity, to better serve and better understanding. And it was just fascinating as he just unpacked that, the way he does. It was just comical, but just really thought-provoking on the things that we don't even know yet, as we just continue to be a society that just grows, and technology just takes over in ways we never thought possible. Another piece of Montel Williams, he came and shared, and just inspiring how he talked about, you just see the different people in his life that brought him to the place that he's at. And he talked about just the entrepreneurship of that is America, Finland and other countries out there that boast their test scores. But you look at where the top companies and the top ideas and the top innovations that are happening in the world aren't in those countries. They're happening here in the U.S. And you look at the product of what the American education system is producing for the world, and the type of everything from the graduation rates. He talked about, sometimes we look at where our graduations are at, but for the first time in history of American education, we're at graduation rate of close to 82%. And, where people look and go, well, we're not at 100%, but just to celebrate that. And how oftentimes us as school board members, we miss those opportunities to really educate the community and to celebrate milestones that we're hitting. And there's some great stuff. We are not settled with where we're at, but there's amazing things going on in public education. And just for us as school board members to advocate for that and to celebrate that. And it was just great to hear his story of someone that grew up in the 50s, and just how his path took him there, and the instrumental teachers in his lives, and the racism and the inequity he faced, and in spite of all that, where he's at today. And it was just very, very inspiring, and really he gave us just little nuggets on just how to give hope for the future. Also, when you ever go to NSBA, it's always networking. I loved it when I was in the elevator. I thought I had the elevator all to myself. And that moment where all of a sudden the arm goes in through the elevator and the doors open back up, and this guy and his wife walk in, and you have the awkward moment where you got your name tags on. He looks down at me and goes, "Federal Way, Washington, huh?" And I'm like, "Where are you from?" He's like, "Nebraska." And he's like, "Yeah, I graduated from Thomas Jefferson High School, and I'm in Nebraska now, school board member there." And it was just awesome to see a former alumni now serving in another state, and just hearing what was going on. And that's just the part of Federal Way. Having an opportunity to hang out with our friends from Spokane and Tukwila and just other districts, and hearing what's going on there, and actually hearing things that they're saying, man, what we hear about what's going on in Federal Way is fantastic, and asking questions about that. And for us to kind of in return ask questions about what are you doing, what's working, how are you handling Common Core, how are you handling discipline, all that type of issues. Just a great opportunity for collaboration. One of the more inspiring times I was in a workshop, I got to hang out with a gentleman who's been on a board for 22 years. And just to sit down with him after that workshop and just go, what have you learned? Where have you been? What does school board look like for you? And just came away from that time. He just gave me some little nuggets on just things that helped him become a better school board member. And anytime you go to the events like this, that's what you get. You get an opportunity just to rub shoulders with some pretty awesome people. The workshops I went to, similar to some of our other board members, challenges for school boards. The focus this year is really on future trends and really understanding the things that are going on in education, the hurdles that we still have yet to face. And that was good. I went to one on strategic plans. I know different board members here have talked about the opportunity of looking at doing a strategic plan and setting some goals for the future years. And so we were able to hear what they're doing in Lincoln, Nebraska, and some of the success they're having there. Also got to hear a presentation from Fulton County School District down in Georgia and what they're doing there as well. And just good to hear not only what they're doing and where they've been, but how they got there, and just really there's exciting parts of it too, but just really the hard work and the discipline that it takes to do a strategic plan right and well, but the benefits and the payoff when you do that. And then finally, I went to one on data-driven districts, and the Harvard Strategic Data Project, they presented on looking on data and really making decisions data driven. And it was good. You know, we are here. That's what we're looking at. We have some great opportunities that we've done, moving to our dashboard and our online grading and those types of things. And how can we look at all those data sets that we're getting? And I know our district does that already, but just as a board, what are opportunities and ways for us to request and to ask good questions about possible data that's out there, so that we are making informed decisions and making recommended decisions based on data, not just perception, but really on the best possible decisions we can. One thing that actually I'll be looking probably to encourage maybe the board to consider in the fall is we just finished ENDS 2. And one of the things as I was sitting in that workshop, I thought about, we definitely looked at how our state scores, how they compare to other districts. But one thing I didn't necessarily think it was missing, but just another layer of data that we might want to consider looking at and asking the district to report out to us maybe in the fall is where are we at with standards base and comparing school to school, and maybe even cohort, third graders in one school and looking at a couple of years. And I know that's something that the district's doing, but us as a board maybe requesting that monitoring and just looking how are we, because that does fit into ENDS 2 and how students hitting stat are not only state, within the state, but also within the district. And just looking at school to school and how are we doing. And, we have the gem of having a standard grading system in our district. And so, looking at that and seeing if there's trends or things that we can maybe gather from that to ask good questions, not necessarily that we need to go fix that, but ask the district just for accountability purposes in the future. So I'm not looking necessarily to make an action item on that tonight, but just food for thought as we move into the fall. And I know we have other ends that we're looking at right now, but just in our continuing monitoring of our ends, that might be one piece of data that might be valuable to us as a board. So thank you.
Thank you. So things were touched on this evening. The Grading Advisory Committee, it is wrapping up. I think we have one committee left to present, and we're hoping that will happen next month, and then the full package will be presented, and then Superintendent McLean will come back to the board with those presentations and their recommendations on how we move forward. Superintendent also mentioned the town hall meeting. I did attend that as well and listened, and we tried to make sure we heard voice about and what we continue to pound on about funding McCleary and making sure that we truly fund things correctly to take care of our students, and also the inequity in the current funding model and how Federal Way loses millions of dollars every year since back to the 70s. And we've really tried to make sure we hone in and continue to press that issue. And we're hopeful this year that they've heard us and that they will make changes around that so that we can be equal to our partners in the South End and how that funding happens. Superintendent search. Just want to give an update as to where we are. I hope all of you have received your postcards or your invitations. We have the next 2 days that are pretty packed solid, from about 8 a.m. To 8 p.m. tomorrow and until 9 p.m. on Thursday. Final interviews will be with the 3 candidates on Friday. Those 3 candidates were announced. And then the board will come together on the 31st and select a candidate at that point, and then negotiations will begin. And our intent, if all goes well, is to announce the superintendent decision on April 14th. If you have any questions or concerns, I encourage all of you to please, it's all hands on board, all hands on deck at this time to participate. Make sure that you come to one of the forums or one of those stakeholder meetings. You'll get to see the 3 candidates. You can give input in each one of those candidates. All of that will be gathered by Ray and Associates and given back to the board. So that is still an opportunity to give input on where you see what is best for all 22,000 children as we move forward. And the board definitely wants to make sure we make the right decision and want your input to do that. Just to touch on, the biggest thing I took away from Jane Pauley and Montel Williams' speeches was, I came out of public education, and look at where I am today. And I have that public education to thank for that. And I think most of us in this room can probably come from the same space of where we are, what our successes are, and what we've done out of a public education basis and where it's profound from. And so, that really struck to me as we walk through this and where that comes from and how we are successful. And we have to remember that. And Montel clearly said, there was 8,000 of us there, which is pretty phenomenal to pull that many people together from across the nation. And he said, the problem is I was just in DC last week, and nobody in DC knows about you. You do not come together. You do not have one voice. They don't know what your voice is. And so for me, as I've been started to get involved with the legislative things this year, there's some things that the board hasn't done in the past that I will continue to for us to start to look in and to delve in to make sure. I mean, when we look at the 295 districts that are in this state, the majority of them are much smaller districts, and I believe that there is voice out of those smaller districts that sometimes carries WASDA in directions that aren't best for us as Federal Way. But as Federal Way, we must have voice to bring that and begin to get that voice forward to make sure we're taking care of us. And that is our responsibility as a board to do that. And I hope that we can all collectively start to do that as we move into May and then into September when we talk about what our priorities will be for next year. What do we want to look at and how do we want to look at it? And so those are things that I am open to as a board member to hear from you about where our priorities should be, what things you think they're doing, what does the state look at differently from what we do to make sure that we're taking care of and having voice the best we can for our district. The things that I attended were kind of technology-based and STEAM and STEM, project-based learning, blended learning, one-on-one technology, and what I walked into going in as restorative justice but have walked out of as a restorative practice. And so I'll kind of talk about each of those. First one was one-on-one technology plans and how does that work. And actually in the presentation, they even brought up what they were doing with special ed students. And so even those self-contained programs and the success they were seeing with those and what can happen with those things. And so that was very interesting to me. I attended with Director Wilson. We watched the DLR group, which DLR actually is an engineering group that came into this to kind of say, let me understand what engineering of how they build schools, to have an understanding. How does project-based learning, how does that look? How does that space need to look different? And it was pretty phenomenal. I was really taken back that you take a group of 4 students from 3 states, and one of those 3 states, they were from 4 different high schools, right? One of them was smaller, all 4 of them were from the same high school. Another group was from 2 different high schools, and 4 of them were from 4 different high schools. And what I walked away from that is that even after the 7 hours, they were supposed to stop at that point, one of the teams continued to work together until 10 o'clock in the evening. And I thought, wow, if my students would want to continue because they want to have the depth and breadth of knowledge to understand what they're in and entrenched in a project-based learning environment, that's what we all want as parents. They want to do it, they thrive and want to, and thirst to have that knowledge base and just want to spend the time to truly understand. And what they presented and where we look at it, it was very futuristic in the things they presented and how it could be. And you know, it's like the turbine piece. They brought up the turbines. Our neighbors to the south are actually using the turbines to create electricity in their water system, right? And so they brought that up and talked about it. And there's just a lot of neat things that came out of that whole pace out of project-based learning. Interdisciplinary STEAM, not just STEM, but STEAM, tying together a STEM environment but adding arts to it and making it interdisciplinary, which means that we break down the barriers between saying it's Algebra 1 and then it's biology and then it's this. In this school, what they're creating in a 9 through 12 school is sometimes it takes 1.5 years to get the credits that you need. It's still, and I'm not sure how it's done, but they're really looking at not siloing it and breaking down the barriers on how we do that interdisciplinary STEAM-based, project-based learning across it to make sure that we're taking care of students. I mean, I always wondered why we went Algebra 1 to geometry and then to Algebra 2. They're actually doing it Algebra 1 with physics instead of biology. That goes to Algebra 2, and then geometry comes in at a time when chemistry does. So they're interrelating all of them so that it crosses over, right? As we look at standards, those standards interlock across different pieces, and they're really digging in to look at it from an interdisciplinary perspective, which is, it's a lot of work, but I think it's something that down the road we need to look at it, how we do and what we do as we look at that component. Developing a strategic plan, actually 4 of us were in that, and it was pretty phenomenal the things they brought up and talked about, and just some things to make sure we're aware of as we begin to move into that area if we want to do it, and just the directions of how we look at things for the next 3 to 5 years. We went back, so it was first looking at the students working, and then we went back the next morning for their presentations about project-based learning. Career and technical education, I went to one to talk about that, and it's how do we get partnerships with our communities. We've heard clearly in the state of Washington that we are going out of state and out of country to fill those technical jobs that are here, and it's a thing we need to change. And one thing that it really stuck with me is this presenter who actually is now on the National NSBA board, out of South Dakota, is that when we truly look at what are required for, it seems like we continue to beat the drum around college, and I'm not in any way discouraging anybody from going to college, but ultimately, if we look at what the jobs are in the market today, 1 job out of 10 needs a master's degree, 2 out of 10 need 4-year degrees, and 7 out of 10 need some kind of certificated technical college-based or community college-based portion that comes out of it, and they can walk out of there with that making $40,000 to $80,000. Right, so 70% of our jobs, that's the range that it's in and where it needs to be. And I think we need to make sure that we're focusing on that and looking at that to make sure we're covering those components. It's really still important to me. And it's how do we begin to partner with those in our community, the businesses that are here, to understand that we're doing the right things out of our high schools and giving our students not only college but career-ready opportunities to go into our space in our community. The next thing I talked about was the restorative justice versus restorative practices. And I think this is an area as a district, and I know that we're going to begin to look at, but I like restorative practices better because justice to me means that we're really behind the 8 ball instead of in front of it. If we really begin to talk about restorative practices and what we look at and how we help students to make sure that the practices that we're all doing, what teachers are, what parents are, what the expectations of our students are, and that it's not just, to say if a student has 1 suspension that they're 25% less likely to graduate is that we need to begin to look at. We all have to be safe. Everybody has to be safe. Students and teachers, anybody in a building has to be safe. But I think we need to begin to look at it differently in what we do. A zero tolerance policy is not working. And it's not the direction that I think we need to be going. And we need to understand where that balance is to make sure that we're all supporting to move forward. And so over the next couple of years, I think it's an area we need to look at, but practices are the way we do it, not by a justice perspective. And so I really liked what they're doing down in LA and San Francisco and the things that they're doing and the directions they're moving. One-on-one blended initiative. It was kind of interesting. They really talked about it being a blended initiative, but really they just talked about their whole process of what they did around one-on-one technology and what they were doing and how they launched that. And then the last thing we listened to was project-based learning from a gold standards perspective. And it's a company that really looks at project-based learning. And where are the gold standards? What work is it? And so, I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of great information. I think we all left almost exhausted. We got home at 10 o'clock last night. And so, but it was well worth it. And I appreciate the time spent and all of the board members that went, including Superintendent McLean. All right, next will be our legislative report from Director Wilson.
Well, I will say that while we were gone, things are where they are. So 35 education bills made it out of their House of Origin by the March 11th deadline. And many of them are being heard in the opposite house this week or are scheduled to be heard this coming week. So this week right now. And many of the bills were weeded out or whittled down, as we know, because there were pages and pages and pages. There's something that I think it's really important to understand is there are some bills that don't get out of their House of Origin and they'll come up later, and those are things that are necessary to implement the budget. And so they may get taken out, but if you have to have them in order to implement the budget, then they're put back in there. So they'll get tacked onto bills that are moving or will be part of the end game negotiation. So even though it's not on there right now, it doesn't mean it won't be. Most of the bills that didn't make it through, obviously, are because of the fiscal impacts and the issue of money that we're facing. And I got an email today from the governor's office, the senior policy advisor, that the House of Representatives Appropriations Chair Ross Hunter and their Finance Chair Reuven Carlisle will release the House State Operating Budget Package. It is late at 11:30 this Friday, and that they will have public hearing on that operating budget that same Friday, 2 hours after the budget is released. So the budget will be released at 11:30 a.m. and it'll be on the Washington, the tvw.org as they do the release. It'll also be available on the legislative website. And then the hearing on it will happen 2 hours later at 11:30. So then we can expect to see another budget soon after that. But the House is the one that sets their budget out first. As I was going through the Bill Watch list, which is now only 5 pages, and it used to be 17 pages, there are many, many things that are still in conversation, but a few things kind of stuck out to me. And Superintendent McLean, you may have some things that you want to add, because I may, or you may have some things you want to correct in what I say. So one of the things that has been an issue, and we continue to know with class size reduction and expansion of full day K, is the issue of facilities and capital. And so there is a House bill that creates a legislative task force to report about facility challenges due to enrollment increases, ed reforms, full day K, and smaller class sizes. There's a hearing, or there was a hearing on it on the 23rd, so that was yesterday. I haven't heard anything. But again, talking about it and doing something about it are two different things. There is also a House bill related to the substitute issue of substitute shortages. And there's been a lot of kind of conversation around that. And 1737 passed the House 97-1 and was referred to the Senate House and Ways and Means, And so it says in schools with a shortage of substitute teachers, this allows early retirees to sub for up to 630 hours and continue receiving retirement. And there's been a few things where I think the initial one did not have an hour cap on it, and as it stands right now, there is that cap. Also, there is, because of what we know is a challenging legislative session right now, the House Bill 2023 changes the deadline for the employee contract from the traditional May 15th to June 15th if the state budget is not passed by the end of the regular session, because again, it'll be very difficult to renew contracts and know what's going on until there's an actual budget that's connected with it. Interesting conversation around more conversation and more work by the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction to consider and recommend social emotional benchmarks. So the only concern about that is it also says in that same language that districts may use MSOC funds. And so there's some concern that we're starting and thinking about, they're calling it revenue neutral, but thinking about when you say may, we're down a slippery slope where that's really not the intention of what those MSOC dollars are for. So we kind of want to probably watch that a little bit closely and keep that kind of on the radar. The other is the Senate Bill 5803, which is talking about during spring conferences, third grade teachers have to inform parents if their students are likely to receive a 1 on the reading SBAC, and talk about intervention strategies and placement. And that's right now 39-9. So it's in the, and it was heard by the House Education Committee. So I don't know where that is or how folks feel, but these are things that are still actively out on the list that may or may not impact and may or may not have a fiscal note attached to them, or may or may not have money that actually gets attached to what they're asking one to do. Anyway, things are moving, and I would say we just have to keep our eyes on things. So the next thing is the one budget, and then soon after we'll see the next budget come out, and then the fun begins where the real negotiations happen. And hopefully we will see movement, but I don't know, because it's a pretty difficult situation. So I hope you have something that you might want to add.
Well, I would like to add at least one comment in regards to the bill that talks about extending the May 15th date, because I'd like to relieve any anxiety for teachers who might be hearing that. So we have already in state law, there is a 30-day trigger if the legislature fails to adopt a budget by the end of session. So I'm not quite sure why we're doing another bill to already support something that exists in state law. So that's a question mark for me, but there may be a particular nuance in that bill that is different than existing state law. But I just want to reassure our teachers that even when we were going through the Great Recession, and the legislature wasn't adjourning until June 30th, we honored our May 15th date, which just, and certainly we're not anticipating any kinds of impacts that were similar to what we were struggling with when we were cutting, $8 or $10 million a year. So I appreciate that the legislature recognizes that for some districts that is a necessary extension in timelines, but here in Federal Way, we've managed to make appropriate assumptions about the final budget outcomes to be able to honor our May 15th date. And certainly in this climate of fierce competition for teachers, we don't want people to be feeling like they need to go take a job somewhere else because they might not get a contract here. So we will continue to honor that May 15th date. And that is just really notice of non-renewal. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
And just want to put that out there. Thank you.
I appreciate the clarification, because certainly that's not the intent, is to have people misconstrue. Thank you.
So I just want to take a moment, Superintendent McLean, to say that I did not mean to overlook you when we started tonight in introductions.
I was out in the audience chatting anyhow.
Well, I was wondering, I didn't do it, so it was not intentional, so I apologize. I didn't have her introduce herself in roll call, so. Next, number 11, the one we added about global learning.
Sorry. I just wanted to just kind of do a follow-up. We did have our first global learning advisory, and my notebook's upside down, meeting. And it was held on February 26th, and we had another one that was scheduled to happen this Thursday, but we have some other important business going on, which is our superintendent search and our forums, and so we pushed the next GLE meeting to happen on April 2nd. We had a wonderful group of representatives that were students, community members, just teachers, and had a really I think, a rich 2-hour conversation around just thinking initially ourselves about what it means to us to be a global citizen and to live in this world, and then had some kind of anchor documents that groups kind of looked at to think about first what they thought it meant to be a global citizen if they were looking at the end, and then they read some research and were able to then compare if they had any new learning based on the 4 pieces of research that were there. And then we began to look at where we've got some likenesses and where there may be some things that we hadn't considered before. And then as a group started to come to some agreement by using kind of a dotting system, if you will, about what we thought was reflected on the walls were the most important things that we might want to consider as we began to construct a definition of what it means in Federal Way for our students to be global citizens and ready and prepared as they graduate. And so we look forward. So we did that. And we've kind of collected that information, and then we'll bring that back to our meeting on the 2nd, and our next step is to reflect on that and begin to come up with some small group work around some preliminary definitions that we can begin to create collectively as a group, and then we will meet once again and solidify that, as well as how we may want to share that information with the superintendent as well as the board. We have about 22 active members on this committee that are truly reflective of the diverse community, and I just want to publicly thank Superintendent McLean as well as Randy Kazar and Christine Coberly, who have been really helpful and working together as a team to really make sure that we're doing this justice and also have some strength in the information that we bring back to the board. So it's been really a valuable, just first time, and I think the students are out collecting information right now and snippets on their cameras, and I think we'll be seeing some things, not just written, but also visually to help us think about that as a community. So thanks.
Great, thank you. All right, item number 12 is for us to discuss EL9, which is facilities, programs, and board monitoring that we did. So at this time, I'd open up to the board for discussion or a motion.
So I'd like to move to have, just show EL9 in compliance.
So the motion for EL9 in compliance, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? So only comment I'd like to make is to thank Cindy Windland and her team for your presentation and your continued work that you do around this EL, and just continue to look forward with your work as it comes forward in the future.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Thank you.
Yeah, and this whole EL, for those who are like, what's EL9? EL9 is Executive Limitation 9, and it's the whole idea of it has to do with facilities and how we protect our facilities. And basically, the initial line for this: the superintendent shall not fail to ensure district facilities are adequate, safe, clean, inviting, and conducive to teaching and learning. Therefore, the superintendent may not fail to maintain a long-range plan for managing and developing facilities, fail to involve key stakeholders in long-range plans, cause or allow actions that violate or materially deviate from voter-approved building and renovation projects, state law, state regulation, procurement code, or building codes, and then finally, fail to develop a plan for public use of buildings and grounds that include and different activities there. And the presentation that we got was great, and it's good to see the plans that we have. And actually, I was sitting in a one of the workshops over at SBA, and we would be the envy of a lot of districts out there. They're like, yeah, that's a great idea. We should do that too. And we're like, yeah, we already have that. And so they're recommending this, for even districts larger than, twice our size. And so I really commend the work that's being done and that continues to be done to make sure our facilities are the best that they can be. So thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed. All right, EL10, asset protection.
I move that EL10 asset protection is in compliance.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No, and I think with this, again, what is asset protection? It's the superintendent shall not allow assets to be unprotected, inadequately maintained, or inappropriately used, or unnecessarily risked. And it has to do with the whole idea of insurance coverages, all that stuff as well. So it's a whole gamut of different things, and it's just the nuts and bolts of day-to-day operations that make a big difference in the long run. And so, yeah, I appreciate the report we received on this as well.
And Jerry, I too want to thank you and your team for all the work around this. Didn't mean, hold on one second, I'll get you, Director Eto. Appreciate your presentation and keeping us moving forward. Director Eto?
Yeah, I wanted to point out on the energy savings piece. I think we talked about it at the work study, but I mean, it's worth public mentioning that there's good work being done in terms of something in terms of our infrastructure that's energy saving, that's significant to the tune of over $1 million. So I thought that just speaks volumes about the rigor of their analysis and the things that they do in this program.
Great.
Yeah. And
Good. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. We'll need to make sure we get both of those signed and in compliance. All right, now EL 9 and 10 language changes. Superintendent McLean.
Thank you for the opportunity to suggest some reorganization rather than actual wordsmithing in EL9 and EL10, EL9 as the facilities program and EL10 as asset protection. What we would like to propose doing is out of EL10 asset protection, moving items 3 and 4 to EL9. So item 3 under asset protection, it indicates that the superintendent may not fail to take steps to ensure a program of preventative maintenance is in place for district facilities and equipment. And we believe that preventative maintenance program is more appropriately housed under EL9, particularly with the state requirement to conduct the asset preservation program, which I know makes it sound more like asset protection, but it really belongs under the facilities program. And item 4, as Director Eto just mentioned, is related to conducting energy assessments and to make modifications which result in energy savings. And again, that's a facilities-driven activity. So we would propose moving items 3 and 4 from EL10 asset protection to EL9 facilities program, and number them as 5 and 6. I don't.
Yeah. And then is there any changes?
And so what you have in your packet.
Thank you, okay, just.
Thank you, yes, sorry, don't look at the packet.
Wait a minute,
Somewhere in my, you know how when you play that old game of telephone, remember, and
yeah.
you say something to this
But really,
person,
what it is
next
moving,
person, the
it's
next
opposite
person?
of what it.
It's opposite of what's in your packet.
That's all I need to know, thank you.
Yes,
And is there anything with 11 and 12?
Not yet.
Okay, not yet. Great. I move to the superintendent recommendation to move from EL10 items 3 and 4 to EL9, making them items 5 and 6.
A motion, do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Any discussion?
This whole thing, I appreciate the superintendent bringing this back. This came out of committee, just housekeeping. Obviously, this isn't a major issue, but we need to have these things lined up with how we do business here. And so appreciate the feedback they gave. And, this is just simple cleanup stuff that I think makes a big difference in the long run.
Thank you. Right, next.
We have to pass it.
Oh, sorry.
Your
Yeah, we
microphone.
pass it.
Your
All in favor?
microphone.
So,
Your microphone.
thank you. It's been a long
It's a
few
long-
days,
yeah.
all of us. All right, so all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, the motion passes. I need some sleep.
Well, we are capping off this evening with actually a great celebration. I think as you take a look at the data related to our student participation in academic acceleration programs, in the numbers of students who are taking exams and the numbers of students who are passing those exams. This has been a 5-year journey, and I think that this is certainly worth taking a moment to celebrate this evening. The written report is very in-depth, and and Diana Thomas and Marie Berhar have picked a few highlights this evening. So with that introduction, I will turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Berhar.
Good evening, President McAnally, members of the board, Superintendent McLean, members of our audience, both here and at home. We are excited tonight to bring you what we consider some celebrations, just one of the many things that we have to celebrate in this district. I'm joined tonight by Ms. Diana Thomas, who is our Interim Director of Advanced Programs and Highly Capable Services, and she's going to be the main act in this show, but I will stay close by for questions and comments at the end. Thank you.
Good evening, President McAnally, members of the board, Superintendent McLean, and members of the audience. My name is Diana Thomas, and I am serving as Interim Director for Advanced Programs Highly Capable Services. And I'm here to talk to you tonight about Executive Limitation 16. And I have some information about that, and I will also have a series of some graphs and charts that I'm going to share with you. So this is highlights from the report that you should have in front of you. And essentially, Executive Limitation 16 says that we're going to have culturally responsive preparatory programs and that we're going to establish standards for enrollment in those. We'll communicate them to all the invested stakeholders, and then ensure access to all of those programs through preparation, and that shouldn't preclude the self-selection process. And that we're also going to have some procedures for when a student has demonstrated that that student has already met standards. So again, remembering that the self-selection process is part of the. So we have 3 policies that specifically support Executive Limitation 16. The first one is academic acceleration, number 2191. And it essentially uses some state assessment data to automatically enroll kids in advanced coursework, and then through conversations at the building level, if they decide they don't want to be in, they actually have to formally opt out of those classes. And this also includes that self-selection process that we mentioned earlier. Academic rigor throughout the curriculum, number 2185, ensures that we have access to preparation to go into advanced programs. So students would have opportunities to be in honors classes or preparatory classes so that they could then access advanced programs at the secondary level. And the last one is course challenging, number 2409, and basically acknowledging that students learn and achieve at different rates, and having a system in place with multiple options for students so that they can potentially challenge a course and move forward. So the data that I'm going to share with you kind of will follow a pattern of a 3-year trend, and then the next slide will show you pre-academic acceleration versus our most recent data. So the first one that I'm going to share is actually percentage of our total enrollment of students who are taking an advanced program course over the last 3 years. And you can see that this has increased for all but one ethnic group. Overall, district-wide enrollment for Native American students is low, and therefore the percentage can fluctuate significantly based on the actions of just a few students. So overall, positive trend over the last 3 years, with a total increase from 30.6 to 33.9. Students enrolled in advanced programs courses, and this is pre-academic acceleration versus our most recent data. And I think that you can look at that, and without me saying much, you can see that there's some pretty impressive gains since the adoption of academic acceleration, from 24.7% to 33% overall, but also gains across each ethnic group. Now we're looking at total enrollment of students and the percentage that have actually passed an advanced programs course in the last 3 years. And you can see, again, that across most ethnic groups, we have an increase. There are 2 groups, Native American and the 2 or more ethnicity group, that showed a slight dip in 2012-2013, but then they exceeded the previous 2 years' results in 2013-14. So again, showing pre-academic acceleration versus the most recent data. If we look at this, we see some pretty significant gains. In fact, all ethnic groups showed gains across there, and specifically the Pacific Islander students and Asian students showed gains of 14.6% and 13.6% respectively. In our total enrollment, the percentage of students who actually took an advanced program exam in the last 3 years, we again are seeing a percentage increase of students. The most notable exception being the Native American subgroup, which is the one that we talked about with low numbers for enrollment. But it dipped slightly, but again still shows gains over 2011 I'm sorry, I'm talking about Pacific Islander now. Or Hispanic. So the Hispanic showed a similar trend, but did show then gains from the previous years. And pre-academic acceleration for advanced program exams versus our most recent data. We look at this and we see double-digit percentages increased in all but one ethnic group, and that is the Native American group, but that group still had a 7.9% increase. And then these numbers look a little bit small, but you have to understand this is of our overall total enrollment, students who actually passed an advanced program and exam. And so when we look at these, though, you will see that the trend is an upward one. It does not represent the percentage of those passing who actually took the exam, but rather total students who passed an exam. And all but one group has an upward trend, and that is, again, that Native American ethnic group. If we look at the next slide from pre-academic acceleration policy, you will see that we see an overall percentage increase across all ethnic groups. On this next slide, we're actually looking at the number of advanced program exams that were taken and then the percentage that were passed. And so, as you can see, our number of exams has continued to increase. The percentage took an initial gain and then has dropped and is now again heading upward. But we could look at this another way as well. And in 2008, compared to 2013-14, we had 930 more exams taken and 277 exams passed, beyond what we did in 2008. The last slide actually, I think, is pretty impressive. It's actually showing of our students who took an exam and then passed at least one exam, what are the percentages? And so when we look up there, we can see that all the ethnic groups showed overall percentage gains in numbers attempting an exam and those passing an exam over the 3-year span, with only the Native American group showing a small percentage dip in 2012-2013. However, the 2013-14 results for that group exceed both previous year's percentages. Students in the 2 or more group showed a marked increase from 2011 to 2012-13, and then they had reduced numbers actually taking exams. They went from 96 to 36, but then in the next year, 2013-14, they had 153 students, and the percentage went up. So if you'll note that there are some raw numbers on there as well, and you can see that the general trend is that the number of testers in each group is going up, although we couldn't report numbers on some of those subgroups because the numbers were too low to share. I think we need to acknowledge the successes, and part of that, of course, is the hard work that's done by the people in the buildings, working side by side with our students, the teachers, the paraeducators, the counselors, the administrators. But here's an overall summary just to see. Over the last 3 years, we had an overall increase in percentage of students taking an advanced program course across almost all ethnic groups. We had an overall increase in the percentage of students passing an advanced program course across almost all ethnic groups. An overall increase in participation for advanced program exams across most ethnic groups, and an overall increase in percentage of students passing advanced programs exam across almost all ethnic groups. Finally, an overall increase in percentage of students who took at least one exam, who also passed an exam across almost all ethnic groups. If we look at pre-academic acceleration as compared to our most recent data, there are percentage gains in all ethnic groups for taking and passing an advanced program course, double-digit percentage gains across almost all ethnic groups for attempting an advanced program exam, increase in all ethnic groups for percentage passing an advanced program exam, and 2,942 tests attempted in 2013 versus 2,009 attempted in 2008, 2009, and that's an increase of 933 tests. I think we also have to acknowledge that Federal Way Public Schools is considered a model for our area districts and the state. And so Project 8 for Race to the Top was specifically designed to support academic acceleration based on our Federal Way Public School model. And surrounding districts, when I went to our convening a few weeks back, were actually all talking about the work that they are implementing as a result. Additionally, there's an RCW that is based on the model implemented by Federal Public Schools. So as we have moved forward into 2014, 2015, obviously we need to ensure that that continued access is there. And so continuing the building's work of academically accelerating students and allowing them to opt out or to opt in. Making sure that we have coursework that supports later placement in advanced programs so that if a student attends Totem, for instance, and does middle year's IB program, can then go to Thomas Jefferson and do full IB. As well, we have our high schools ensuring that they are communicating in various means. So they are doing that from things as general and more global as newsletters and websites to personalized interviews with students who have been academically accelerated and having conversations about best fit for them. We also need to have intentional support. When we academically accelerate students, we need to ensure that they have the support because they may not have had have taken some of those preparatory classes in the younger grades, but then suddenly pass state tests and are academically accelerated. So what's our intentional support? One of those was mentioned earlier. We have an early warning indicator system established through our VersaFit information warehouse. And it's being utilized to monitor our students so that we can have a quick, easy look to see how are they doing with attendance, grades, discipline, and so on. Oops. So advancement via individual determination, also known as AVID, is a very strong program in our district. And it is one that empowers our students to feel confident in attempting courses with rigor. And in fact, at least at Federal Way High School, I know a demonstration site that students in AVID are required to take at least one advanced course. The middle school course offerings, as I talked about previously, are designed to complement the feeder pattern and support students as they transition. And each high school, each comprehensive high school is set up different support systems to help students who have been academically accelerated. Some of those are during the school day and some of them are after school. More specifically, we have Project 8 through Race to the Top. And Federal Way High School and Truman are the recipients of that grant. And they specifically have some staff who've been hired to support students during the student day and after school. The teachers of the advanced coursework have access to differentiated instruction, professional development, and they also have opportunities to meet together and professionally collaborate throughout the day. As we look to the future, so thinking ahead, some of the work that our department has to do, consider ways to build sustainability of our intentional supports because Race to the Top is a finite source of money. It will go away. And then also we need to perhaps examine our enrollment standard and what will be set given that the state has moved to smarter balanced assessment and that we could predict that scores are probably going to take an initial drop with that assessment and how might that impact our academically accelerated numbers. So having said all that, I want to thank Diana Gradden and Peter Johnson, who really put hour upon hour into working on collection of data for this presentation. And I welcome any questions that you might have.
I think it's also important here to recognize the Federal Way School Board for the courageous leadership in stepping forward to create such policy. And if you didn't hear about that at your conference you were at the last 4 days, we should have, because it is that courageous leadership that enables us to truly offer academic excellence for all students.
Thank you. So I have three little questions. So one is with the SBAC, with the Smarter Balance dip. I think it's gonna be critically important for us to think about what kind of a bridge we can have so that test score alone, as you're saying, is not going to be an indicator if we know it's a new test to keep children out. The second thing I wanted to just clarify and make sure that my understanding is when we're talking opting out, that parents are part of that conversation and that students alone don't opt themselves out, but parents are the ones that actually are sitting down, that although the conversation about best fit includes a student, ultimately parents are engaged in that. Okay, just checking. Next thing is, can you give me, and I should know this, but I don't, the number of students that identify themselves as Native in our district, what that N is on that, approximately? I know it's little, but like is little under 30 or is little under 100? Just an idea. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
That's okay.
We can get that information.
That's okay.
for you.
Okay, I just wondered because I do know.
Typically, it's less than 100.
Yeah, because I do know.
And that's district-wide.
Yeah, I know when a pool is very, very small, as you said, I think it's really important to consider how much an individual student can impact those numbers, and that we need to continue to look at that group as a group we need to focus attention on and support around. But I just feel it's just awesome. The question, and then I'm done, is have we looked at gender? The number of girls versus boys in our advanced placement, and do we know anything about our number as we look at that?
We have looked at it. I can get that information for you.
I'd just be interested myself if we can kind of do the same thing and use that as a lens that we look through.
In regard to your first question, we are engaged in conversations about what those scores will look like for our automatic enrollment into academic acceleration, and we've had multiple conversations about what that will be, and I'm sure Superintendent McLean will be bringing us more of that information as we continue, but we have begun initial conversations about what that would look like.
Thanks. It's great. Awesome.
And the answer to your question about number of Native American students, we have 141 according to our data warehouse.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job, Mr. Mayberry.
Ron, in high school or K-12?
That's K-12.
Thank you.
Could you pull up the gender data too for us?
It's really important. It's really important.
Congratulations on the results. I also just have some clarifications that I need. So if I'm understanding correctly, there is some testing that's done, and if the student indicates capability in that subject, they get to be auto-enrolled, and then the parent can decide whether or not they can opt out. And then there's also students that may not meet that test requirement or maybe even prerequisites for the class, but may choose to opt in. And then for them, it's not a test, but a early warning system that protects their progress in that class, or is there actually a test they must pass to opt in?
So no, they would just opt in to the class.
Self-selection.
Self-select into the class. The early warning indicator system is available for all students in Federal Way Public Schools, but it's a nice quick shot to see how a student is performing overall in multiple areas on one screen.
Okay, thank you.
This is awesome. So excited. I mean, we could literally celebrate just one slide on this and feel good about that. But the whole thing is just, it's phenomenal. And it hasn't come easy. It hasn't come, there's been, it's been a struggle at times to get there. And it's just fantastic to see the results. And at the end of the day, it's not numbers, it's students. And at the end of the day, it's not just those students, but the students that are going to be coming up behind them. And it's not just our students, but other districts that they hear about it and go, man, and they see it working here. And it's exciting. And, I even look back this year, and I know we talked about a couple work studies. I know we had Principal Chacon and Principal Hall, and we were talking about Director Blauser was talking about how, we've learned as we've gone through this process too, where this is an awesome opportunity. Not all students will get in a class and maybe succeed in that, but that's part of it is trying. And that's part of life lessons is learning and trying, and how we even have a credit retrieval opportunity for students that, they get placed in these classes and it might not work for them. And, it's just, that's what we're here about Federal Way, is about helping students get and do rigor. And we're seeing not only are we getting them in these classes, but they're doing it and they're passing it. And we're, the stories and the testimonies we've had throughout the year and that of just students that, didn't think they could, and they get in there and they try it, and all of a sudden the blinders come off and possibilities open up, and it's awesome. It's exciting. It's what we hoped, and to see the results now. And I know we're not done yet with the work, but it's fantastic. I just want to thank those that are here tonight that can receive that. Thank you. But also those that aren't even here, the teachers that are in the classroom every day, the building administrators that are, dealing with those, the little pieces that we got, because every student's important and we're not wanting anybody to fall through the cracks. And it's that care and that attention to detail and really seeing how we can do it better and better. That is just, it's what we do here in Federal Way, and it's awesome, so thank you.
Thank you, Director Peterson, for acknowledging the work of our teachers. I think it goes without saying that it is the teachers in the schools who are supporting these students and lifting them up and keeping them going. It's a huge celebration for them. You're right.
Yeah, and you even see it in families. It's transformational for families that just thought the ceiling was this high, and you see it affect not only that student but also their siblings as well, and it can change a whole family dynamic, and it's phenomenal. So. It's great work, and I'm glad we're doing it, and I know we're going to continue, so thank you.
Thank you.
So I just have a couple clarifying questions. So these numbers are all secondary, of course, but
Yes.
is it just all high school? Are we including Kylo and Totem?
This is 9 through 12.
It is just 9 through 12. So are we starting to track any of the, because I know we have some pre-AP opportunities that are starting to happen in some middle schools too. Are we going to start to look at those pieces too? I guess not, because it's not, but it's still a pass-fail, right? I mean, we can still.
It's on the BAME scale,
right.
and it isn't necessarily part of EL 16 because this
I
is
see.
9 through 12. However, I think it's a great suggestion to start taking a look as we move kids into
Right.
how are they doing in the middle schools, and we haven't started that process yet, but great suggestion.
Thank you, and congratulations. Great work, and our teachers, absolutely, every day. Day in and day out, what they do to support and lift up and continue to make our kids, all of our kids thrive, right? So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that,
Are we gonna,
that's.
is it action?
It's actionable.
It shouldn't be actionable because it should be presented. It should be non-actionable, so. Let's follow what we've done. So at this point, even though it's marked.
Right, I do believe there were a few pieces of data that were requested as a result of this presentation that we would like that opportunity to bring back, so we can perhaps look at bring back the gender participation rates. I think we had the Native American question answered, but one piece that I think I'd like to bring back and celebrate is also the fact when you look at this through an equity lens, and this whole work was to narrow the opportunity gap, and I'd like to bring another piece of data where you don't have to do the math yourself to see where we have successfully narrowed the opportunity gap over the course of this work, because I think that's worth celebrating too. It's not eliminated.
Yeah.
It's not eliminated, but it has been narrowed.
Well, I think, just showing it, and to me, it's all about, again, measure progress, because it's a process that takes time, and it's important to just see growth and to see change, and we know there's going to be ebbs and flows, but I think it's really important, and I really appreciate that, and we'll look forward to seeing it.
And just one final comment before we close tonight. It's those of you that came before myself and a couple of other board members that did this, and it was acknowledged tonight, and I know that was tough work to do, and thank you, Assistant Superintendent Farhar, for acknowledging that. It is truly a partnership in how we do all of this, and so I'm going to thank you. I want to thank my peers for the work that you did to make that happen. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you, sir.